Hey guys, I am having one of the best hair days of my life. It is raining outside. Absolutely exhausted. I've been working my butt off since coming back from the Outer Banks with my family. We had a beautiful vacation, but we've been processing orders like nuts, and I have not been able to fish at all. However, tomorrow is Friday. It is the day before the BFL on High Rock Lake, and if I can finish everything I need to do today, I am gonna get to fish tomorrow. So I'm super excited, but it has been raining like mad here, and I'm kind of switching up my rods right now. I'm just taking kind of a little lunch break from orders. I'm on my boat and I'm switching up a few things. So a few of the things that I'm doing is putting away anything finesse. In my opinion, and I haven't been there yet, but that river is going to be flowing really hard. There's going to be a lot of mud and debris rolling down the river. So there's a few things in my brain that I'm thinking about, and one of them is, well, finesse patterns probably are not going to play as much. Yeah, maybe on a shaky head or something like that, but you know, I've got one of those rigged up, and I'm going to leave that on the deck of my boat. But for the most part, I'm going to be using bigger lures, louder lures, spinner baits, chatterbaits. And when I say chatterbait, I'm actually referring to our prototype Recon, which I'll show you in a minute. But also, you know, crankbait. So I've been throwing, the last time I was out, this prototype of our iDive series deep diving crankbait. This is the iDive 12, hand painted by me. Yeah, that won't be an actual color we release, but it's just something. I had some cans of paint and I just spray painted it really fast. I'm actually going to replace that with our Revolt, because our Revolt's loud and it dives to about a depth of 4 to 6 feet, which is kind of the range that I feel like the fish are going to be in, or at least the deepest range I feel like they're going to be in. Because when the water gets super cloudy, when it's full of debris, these fish, for the most part, are going to pull up shallow. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to catch fish out deep. I think there's probably some that will stay out there. But I think by and large, just due to the limitations and water clarity, I do think that they're probably going to move up shallow. Now, I could be totally wrong, but that's my game plan. So right now, I'm kind of putting away, you know, I'm putting away the Racky Wig baton. You know, I'm going to be putting this away and replacing it with, you know, our Revolt 4 to 6. This one is in the Blaze color, which is one of my favorites when the water is stained. Hopefully, when I rig up everything, we won't have any problems out in the water, and I'll just be able to cycle through some bait, cycle through some areas, and find some fish. So we're not gonna have a lot of time. I know a lot of these anglers have been out all week looking for bass and finding bass, and good for them. People like me have to work, so we're limited to our practices. So it's important to be efficient, and I'd rather be efficient on the boat now than have to waste my fishing time re-rigging later. So that's what we're doing, and hopefully tomorrow we'll get after it. We will see in the next frame. I'll be out there, hopefully, with a rod bent. Stay tuned. Woo! Look at that. We are here on High Rock. That didn't take long at all, did it? It is actually 9:40 in the morning, Friday, day before the tournament, and I haven't caught anything. I've had one bite on small probe finesse worm, and I caught, well, I didn't catch, I hooked a fish that I believe was a carp on our Revolt crankbait. So right now I am venturing into some muddier water. There's been a lot of rain here, and just trying to kind of figure out what the fish do when the water gets super muddy. My belief is that they probably push into the backs. You know, I've kind of seen that already in Second Creek. There was quite a bit of bait in the creeks, but it was also much more clear. So I'm going to say there was about 1.5 feet of visibility there. There is probably 6 inches where I am now. So if I don't see anything here, I'm probably going to venture down lake. I doubt I can get into Flat Swamp Creek based on the high water, but that would be an ideal situation because the water does stay more clear there. But yeah, It's been a tough morning so far. Humbling experience, of course, as always on High Rock. But we will figure them out and hopefully put a few in the bag. So I did spend about an hour up in the muddy water, bouncing around from shallow water to, some docks or brush piles, but did not have any positive response to any of the techniques I was using. So I did go down back south and hit some of the bridge areas and the riprap, and did pick up a few small ones in those areas. There's number one. Now the water was significantly more clear in these areas, so I was able to finesse fish a little bit. Throughout the day I'd been throwing moving baits and just had gotten no positive responses. Although I did have a fish on my crankbait, I do believe I probably had foul hooked a carp. If it had been a bass, it was a giant, but we're going to assume it was a carp just by the way it was stretching my line. So yeah, at this point, this is my second fish on the probe finesse worm, which is kind of my go-to bait when the bite is tough. So at this point, I'm struggling, and I decided to go ahead and start fishing offshore stuff. Now, I'd largely avoided any deeper brush piles that I had previously marked from my experience on High Rock before, and I intentionally avoid those simply because of all the poaching that goes on. A lot of the guys that are fishing the BFLs and just fishermen in general are always looking at what other guys are doing instead of using their side scan units to go find their own stuff. There's just a lot of spot hopping. So, I avoided my better spots during this practice and really tried to focus on expanding my knowledge of the areas around Second Creek and the areas where there was more clear water. So my focus was on finding, more structure on different points. And so I did a lot of side scanning here and started throwing around the crankbait, started throwing around the Carolina rig. And when I say I started throwing around the Carolina rig, I started throwing around the Carolina rig a lot. I did catch a bunch of white bass during this practice on the Carolina rig using the Vigilante. And I knew that it was something I could keep in my back pocket if I got desperate in the tournament. Now, the offshore bite in this practice just didn't materialize for me. I did not catch any bass. However, I knew that they were out there. I really felt like that this day, because of the weather patterns and everything, that the fish were just kind of in a funk. So at this point, I ran back up shallow just to keep things honest, picked up a 1 ounce weight, started throwing the Cyclone into buckbrush, and I landed my first, respectable fish, and it was like maybe a 2-pounder. Guys just saw, That was our third fish of the day. I didn't measure those other two, but I'm pretty sure they were not keepers. Maybe the second one was. That was like a 2-pounder. I caught that one just flipping, and I was running bank pretty quick. As soon as we started to get to the back, that's when it bit. So that told us a lot, actually. We have not gotten bit offshore. So that was the Cyclone with a 1-ounce tungsten weight, snell hooked, flipping hook. I'm gonna get out of here and start poking around and see if we can duplicate this pattern in other coves. All right, guys. Well, I've got 3 fish in the boat. 2 were keepers and 1 was not. But I am dialing in what I need to do at this point. I also want to announce that I found this in the lake. This actually is a submersible submarine, and I'll give you tours of the bottom of High Rock if you send me $2,500. So, not a bad gig. Oh my God. Look at the shoreline grass, y'all. What the? I'm not seeing this at High Rock, but I don't typically fish in the summer because I'm taking my kid to surfing tournaments. This is beautiful. So I ran a bunch of shallow stuff, found some beautiful grass along this one particular cove, flipped that for a while, but had no additional bites. But I went back offshore and played around a little bit, but it was the weather systems were starting to roll in. Although they weren't calling for rain, there was a big storm cell coming in, so just threw on the raincoat thinking that it might just drizzle, but sadly that wasn't the case. But I did end up going back to some riprap, hoping that maybe that pattern actually would turn out to be something, but yeah, it wasn't. Well, if you can see me, it's raining. Midday weather report. Usually if I bring my rain gear, it won't rain, but it's currently raining. Yeah, so it didn't just rain a little bit, it rained a lot. Now I had bibs with me, but I kept thinking, this isn't going to last that long. And by the time my shorts were completely drenched, I realized that storm was actually going to dump a significant amount of water. Now that sound you hear, that's actually the raindrops hitting the microphone of the GoPro. It's kind of a strange sound, but yeah, that's what that is. So we got pretty darn soaked, and as quickly as the rain came, it had left. So I decided to go back shallow. There was the bait fish and herring and that sort of thing in this lake, they actually really started to show themselves. So I started throwing topwater in certain areas, shallow again, and then without any bites, kind of broke down and picked up that probe again and threw it around. But ultimately, it was just, there was nothing, I didn't get anything more to bite. So at this point in the game, I'm thinking, this is it, man. I'm just gonna have to really grind. But I decided as a last resort, like, hey, on the way back to the ramp, why don't you just go to a row of docks and pitch around a wacky rig baton. There we go, guys. It's a wacky rig bite. The very first time I threw it, I got bit. Well, guys, it is 6:15 in the evening. I got an hour drive home, but we're calling it. I don't think there's anything more I'm gonna learn fishing. In fact, I probably could have quit at noon. Well, that's all she wrote for my one day of practice. And as you guys saw, there wasn't much to see. It was an absolute grind. Now, I will say this. There's a lot of brush piles that I have used my side scan unit to find. A lot of brush pile docks that I pretty much avoided. I didn't finish anything that I had previously marked and know from previous experience that, you know, hey, this spot can be good. So I didn't fish anything like that. I was pretty much bouncing around looking for bait and looking for bass, and I really didn't find what I was looking for. For me, the lake's gonna fish pretty small. You know, I'm not gonna be able to get into the back of Abbott's. I'm not gonna be able to get into Flat Swamp due to the water levels. And then the upper reaches of the river, I mean, A, they're a navigational hazard, but also they're chocolate milk right now. And I don't have enough experience up there to really put something together when the water is that clarity. So, you know, I'm gonna have to basically fish in the areas that everybody else is gonna be fishing. So I have a feeling that High Rock is going to fish really small tomorrow, and, you know, I'm gonna be part of that big group fishing that small area. So I did tie up a bunch of more finesse stuff than I typically like to throw. I suspect I'll be throwing a shaky head a lot, and maybe even a wacky rig. So I did get bit later on in the day on a wacky rig. In fact, the very first time I threw it underneath a dock, I had a bass pick it up and start carrying it away. So, you know, that's a pattern that may continue tomorrow. I don't know. So every day is different, obviously. But what we're gonna do in the morning, I think, is we're gonna buckle down in the area where the tournament is starting. And I am just going to grind. And I suspect there's gonna be a lot of other people grinding in that area as well. So I did find an area where there was a shad spawn, but interestingly enough, there just wasn't any keeper bass that I saw feeding on them. But at least I know an area where there's a lot of shad. So that was a plus. So, you know, I'm gonna hit that area where the tournament starts. I may hit that shad spawn area. Beyond that, it's just gonna be me bouncing around and grinding. It's gonna be a tough tournament for me. I suspect that there's a shad spawn somewhere, and I suspect somebody's found a mother load of big bass, but you're not looking at that guy. So this is strictly a layup. I don't expect the tournament to be groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination, but for those of us that work, you know, you guys get it, right? I mean, one day of practice is not sufficient typically to put together a game plan for a tournament of this magnitude. So, and there's guys that have been out there for the last week, and some of them for 2 weeks because they fished the Piedmont the week before. So, you know, there's a lot of guys that have kind of been on top of what's been going on. So, you know, they've definitely got a jump start on me as far as, you know, what to do tomorrow. So, we're gonna just you know, keep the rod in our hand, keep our lures wet, and hopefully we can get 5 in the boat. That's my goal. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching, guys, as always. And you know, after this video drops, shortly after this video drops, we'll drop the tournament coverage. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you learned something. And if you have any questions for me or comments, feel free to leave them in that little area below. But again, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you out in the water.